Salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the QPOL podcast, where we say the quiet parts out loud. I'm your host, Phil Gibson, aka Mr. Sue, MRPSEU. You can follow me on Twitter at that handle. You can also follow this podcast and the rest of my writings and musings at qpol.substack.com. That's QPOL, quiet parts out loud. My guest today is Tom Luongo, returning for a third time, as I like to say. Third time is a charm. Best things come in threes, and it's also an honor to have you as an inaugural guest for the launch of the QPOL podcast. So, Tom, happy to have you here. How's it going, man?
How are you, Phil? How you been?
As you say, I breathe in and breathe out.
There you go. But you got to repeat as necessary.
Yeah, only as necessary though.
Only as necessary. You don't want to get we're trying to be environmentally friendly here. We're only taking what we need from the
Yeah,
environment.
yeah. I don't need to breathe that much, right? I'm gonna neutralize carbon and
Smoke these things. I don't breathe at
save the
all.
farting cows, whatever. But as you like to say, we got a lot to talk about. I wanted to open up the whole currency arbitrage thing that you talked about with Meloni and her outing of the debauchery and canoodling that France has been doing to South or North Africa.
Right,
But
right.
as you recently saw, there's a drop on Zero Hedge of now the District of New York is going after the whole FTX thing. I sent you some notes, but where would you like to start with that?
No, I mean,
Just with the
Phil,
press.
it's your gig, man. You take me in whatever direction you want to go, and if we hit all the highlights, we hit all the highlights. So I
Okay.
looked at the notes once and went, "Wow, that's a long list." Do you think I actually read it? I'm like, no, yeah. The TLDR was there were 16 things on the list you wanted to talk about. I'm like, oh, okay, so we're gonna get to three of these. All
Yeah.
right, got it. But as far as there's no what you're referring to is an article just dropped at 12:45 on Zero Hedge. We're doing this on around 1:30 or so Eastern time, Friday, December 2nd. And interestingly enough, the headline is, the SEC and prosecutors are now, looking into or subpoenaing or whatever you want to call it, a lot of FTX's associates. And I'm like, okay, that's an interesting headline, but that doesn't tell me anything until I find out in what district of federal court are we talking. And of course, it's in the Southern District of New York, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Wall Street banks and Federal Reserve. Therefore, this is a very important piece to the story because if they were going to sweep this entire thing under the rug, and I'm not saying they're not going to sweep most, if not all of it, under the rug, they're going to sweep most of it under the rug. They would not be pressuring. This is a statement that it's the Fed and the New York banks are going to pressure FTX. They are not going to sweep this under the rug. Nothing may come of this officially. We may never get a lawsuit. We may never get discovery, or we may even get a lawsuit, but we may never go to discovery, similar to Theranos and everything else is happening. But you know that behind the scenes, certain people are taking a knee, certain people are getting a manila folder on their desk this morning, or have been getting manila folders on their desks for the last 2 weeks, or certainly the last 3 weeks since election night, saying, you work for me now. You no longer work for them. You work for me. Or you can retire quietly, like the guy who runs the Washington office of the FBI just retired, and he's younger than I am. Happened this morning. We saw it. We saw it tweeted out on our Slack server this morning. I already tweeted it out and said, this is what's going on. And then I just published a post for the patrons, talking about this as well. This is a big deal. This is the guy who raided Mar-a-Lago. This is the guy who prosecuted everybody post January 6th. This is the guy who, created when he was in Illinois, or when he was in the Midwest office. He's the guy who created the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping case. That guy just retired.
Yeah.
From the FBI. Bullshit.
Yeah. So basically, powers that be at the Fed are just
draining
the swamp in a way.
Something has changed on Capitol Hill, and now assets that have been in place for Davos and Obama at a particular, in important pawns are being taken off the board.
Right.
And when we hear that Merrick Garland, for example, has to step down because of family needs, then we know that we're moving up the food chain. We're starting with this guy. Now we should continue to see people of his ilk at the DOD, the DOJ, all across the alphabet soup agencies. We're going to see this quietly, a series of retirements. We're going to see some people in Congress resign or retire for health purposes. It's going to happen. I don't know how many of these we're going to see. We'll see how many scalps get gotten. But this is grist for really, Powell and the Fed and the New York banks are up against Davos, and they're winning. That's what it says to me.
I mean, it's crazy because it wasn't that much of a victory for the Republicans in midterm. I mean, Mitch McConnell basically got all of his Davos trolls elected, but sure. It's just amazing how, I guess, effective monetary policy and everything that's downstream from that can actually get rid of these people. Like, is that basically just what's happening?
Again, McConnell was, who leaked, 2 days after FTX broke, who leaked the picture of the donation from FTX to McConnell's PAC. McConnell has now been properly publicly chastised. So do we expect to see the same Mitch McConnell that we saw before? I don't think so. So again, who do you work for? McConnell is still in power. He's still there because now the stack of manila folders on one side of the ledger is taller than on the other side of the ledger. And now Cocaine Mitch is gonna have to, suck Satan's cock, as I like to say. That's the way this works. And I use that phrase on purpose. I'm not just doing it to be cute, funny, or anything else. Even though it is cute, funny, and vulgar. It's because this is the nature of the people that we're dealing with. This is the level of, this is how they talk to each other in effect. Okay? This is the world they operate in. We have to stop thinking that they operate in our world. We have to think like them. We have to act like them. And frankly, you need to talk like them. Because if you talk like them, then it's easier to get into the mindset. It's a little bit of method acting for geopolitical analysis, right? It's like, hey, how about I just put on my Jamie Dimon suit and then start acting like it? I'm like, all right, now what? What does that look like? Oh, I know what that looks like. Suck Satan's cock. That's what that looks like. So there you go.
Yeah. And a recent interview that you said that you were talking about, like you were just sitting around drinking with buddies, and imagine I'm Jamie Dimon and we're going to take out BlackRock, and why?
I'm Jamie Dimon. We got Solomon over there. We got some other guy from Boney. We got some other guy from, well, not both of it, Citigroup, blah, blah, blah. They're all sitting around. I don't know whether Dimon can actually drink after the aortic session or not, or even smoke a cigar, but he's going to sit there maybe with his mineral water or whatever the hell his doctor will allow him to drink now. And they're sitting around and having drinks and doing the thing on a porch in a hotel and overlooking, I don't know, pick a city that they're going to get together in, probably West Palm Beach. At this point, it's the winter time, so I expect him to be in West Palm and just doing the thing, as I like to say. That Fink guy, he's kind of getting uppity, don't you think? He's reminded me an awful lot of Dick Fall. Remember what we did to Dick Fall, Lehman Brothers? Oh yeah, those were good times, weren't they? Yeah, they were. And this Biden creep, we got to get rid of this guy. What are we going to do with this guy? Right. And this is the way they just have that, to put yourself into that conversation. Sit back and do a little LARPing. And what do you got? Right. Yeah. You got, it looks an awful lot like what we're seeing. And, and then when you understand, how subtle the game is played, we've all watched enough House of Cards or, political dramas or whatever to know that, that at the end of the day, they're telling you the truth about how these things operate in the real world. Who's going to fall on their sword? Who's going to walk away? Who's going to go into witness protection? Who's going to turn states? Who's going to act as a double agent? Blah, 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 blah. Right. But you know, and then we have to have a show trial, and someone has to be the fall guy for that. So they've got they've got Scam Bankster Fraud doing the PR tour, like, but he's, he's still trying to do the aw shucks thing. I was just trying to save the world. So he's basically, Greta Thunberg without the knothead and and the fake outrage. And still trying to like sell this thing that he really did want to save the world so that he can then take the fall. They did the same thing. They tried to do the same thing with Elizabeth Holmes, and that failed tremendously because she was clearly an idiot. I mean, when I saw Kevin O'Leary tweet out the other day that, hey, I lost an awful lot of money believing FTX, and he was at Bitcoin 2021. I saw him speak there, on about the ESG panel, the ESG and Bitcoin panel, and and O'Leary was, he said, oh, I lost a lot of money and blah 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 blah, and he tweets out, but I just watched that entire interview with SBF, and I gotta say I believe the kid. I'm like, yeah, right, fine. Pull the other leg, it plays Jingle Bells. Pull the other leg, it plays Welcome to the Machine. I don't believe you, Kevin.
Yeah. And like you say, he's not going to go to Discovery, because if that was the case, then everybody behind Ukraine or whatever offshore money creation, they would be outed.
Right. If everybody on Capitol Hill has compromat on them, then no one wants to go to look. Mutually assured destruction works in power politics as much as it works in nuclear war. No one wants to go to Aida. No one wants to go to Aleppo. Right? So that's why we always see these very muddled outcomes from these big things. Now, does that test the patience of the people who want to see, some catharsis and some closure and some justice? Yes. So this time, someone's going to have to go to jail. Do I think it's scam banks or fraud? Most likely. Do I think it's many people beyond that? Most likely not. Will that be enough? No, it won't. Because
he actually goes to jail?
Done, what's that?
You actually think Sam goes to jail?
Yeah. Yeah. It'll take some time. It'll work its way through.
I guess that, again, is more downfall of who's actually running stuff.
Think of it this way: even if O'Leary's right, even if fraud is, if this guy really didn't know what was going on behind his back, I just assume for like the next minute or so that I'm a moron, right? And that and that I don't have, I don't have three brain cells to rub together and make a spark. Let's just assume, even if we assume for a second, that he is what he purports to be. And oh shucks, I just wanted to save the world. I thought I was doing a great thing. Blah 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 blah. By the way, that's nonsense, because we know from previous interviews that he did while this was going on. He was like, "This whole thing's a scam. I know it's a scam, but I'm doing it anyway."
Yeah.
Well, let's just assume that. What use does he serve them anymore, other than as a fall guy? He doesn't serve any purpose anymore, right? The whole thing is done. It's been blown up. It's now going to cost a whole lot of people everything. And the real people who are on the shopping block here are the ones who never got control of, who never sealed the deal with getting the Fed under control.
Right. And because it's just better him than people that actually matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now we got to start looking at who's going to get excommunicated from the club at the higher level.
Yeah.
Okay, because they're all shoring up their manila folder resumes at this point. Okay. There's a lot of shit going on that we're not seeing. But you can see bits and pieces of it. We get the breadcrumbs. We do the Hansel and Gretel thing.
Yeah, like all the divestment.
Remember what everybody's incentives are.
Yeah. I mean, I guess one example would be all the divestment out of BlackRock.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, and even that's happening at the state level. What is it, $5 billion so far? It's nothing. It's a rounding error for BlackRock. They have $7.95 trillion worth of assets under management. It's a rounding error for BlackRock. Okay. And if you don't think that, part of what Powell may have invited here with seemingly sounding dovish the other day wasn't to, give Fink a lifeline to stop the outflow of real assets under management, but at the same time say, now you work for me.
Yeah.
Then what better way than to engineer a big rally, end of the year rally in the stock market to minimize everybody's losses?
Mm-hmm.
You think that Powell did that for Fink's benefit? No, he did it for his own benefit.
Yeah, and as we've seen, every time they raise rates, so there's like two sides of this argument that I've come to. Every time he raises rates, he's just like, "Oh, the economy didn't suffer; it's actually booming, so we can raise rates again. There's enough room." But on the other side of that argument, it's as if, "Oh, inflation's terrible. We need to raise rates." So it's like they can't really lose whatever the narrative is.
I know. They're absolutely, they are, and this is why I've been sitting there going, okay, Lagarde, keep trying to get out of the Chinese finger trap. It ain't working. All you're doing is making it worse. Now you got 4 fingers stuck. Now you got 2 Chinese finger traps you're trying to get out. Now you got 3. Now you got 4. Eventually you run out of fingers. Like, little Dutch boy plugging holes, yada yada. So, use whatever metaphor you want for this. And one of the things, I don't think I said it to the patrons the other day in the market report. I think I said it yesterday in my the podcast I did for Newsmax. I do a Newsmax podcast on Thursdays. Okay. Right. So Wednesday is a market report. On Thursday I do basically a similar one for my patrons over my subscribers over at Newsmax. Cool. And there I was describing all of this as, look, Lagarde is reloaded, but what gun is she reloaded? Well, is she even reloaded, or did she empty the shotgun and now she's down to the 357? Meanwhile, she's trying to fight Powell with a howitzer, who's now reloading as we speak. Every time the foreign central banks go on a friggin' tear to reload their balance sheets with cheap treasury bonds to defend their currencies with the next time the dollar goes on a bull run, because that's what happened. That's part of what you're seeing here. Remember, I talk about this all the time. Or I don't know all the time, but I've made the point many times that it looks to me like foreign central banks like the setup on the quarter point on the 30-year and the 10. They'll buy 30s and 10s and even 5s and 7s when they reach a particular quarter point. So 4.25 for the, so we saw 4.25 on the US 10-year, and they all bought it like man. Especially when you think about that in the context of, it happened that that quarter, that 4.25 on the US 10-year coincided with the breakdown of the Bank of England, right? The overthrow of Liz Truss. That was the pivot point. So now everybody goes on a run. The dollar stops appreciating because they know probably coming down the pike that the next thing that's going to happen is we're going to put Credit Suisse in the crosshairs because they're going to go after the Swiss. It means it's going to force the Swiss National Bank to intervene in the markets, blah, 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 blah. And so we've just seen this continued run and this, it's a bear market, I think, now in U.S. Treasuries, but this is a bull market rally or bull market correction within a new, very new long-term bear market, I think, in U.S. Treasuries. It's going to last probably a decade. Now, if we're there on that, then it makes sense that we'll see that push all the way down to no lower than 3.5%. At that point, they're probably
on the 10.
I'm thinking like the Singaporean central bank and Hong Kong and others are thinking about like, wow, I'm actually able to get the U.S. Treasuries. I got to go I can get out at 3.5% as opposed to 3.75, because I was just hoping for 3.75. And now we're looking at, what are we trading at today on the 10? 3.7, 3.57, 3.59. So, but we hit 3.5, and then all of a sudden the buyers dried up. And so this makes sense that this is probably as far as the run in treasuries is over. We're going to start getting selling, because now the Fed can do what? They can decide on, well, we're going to do $95 billion a month in QT between our mortgage-backed security holdings and our treasury holdings. Well, when treasury prices are high, what do you think they're going to sell? They're going to sell $95 billion a month worth of U.S. treasuries. That's what they're going to do. Now,
who's going to actually buy that?
Well, they've been selling into that strength. They won't sell them now. Now they'll sell. There's still demand for them now, right? Yeah, there's still demand for them. They're just going to sell them. The Fed can now just sell them, into the market where it's needed, because it's not like the treasury market's collapsing. And right now, the treasury market, everybody wants treasuries. So now you can sell into strength.
Mm-hmm. Which is why like the yield on treasuries is going down because people are just buying them because
Right.
that's the
And
safest
so
place to
now,
park dollars, right?
yeah,
Right
well,
now.
they're buying treasuries because they know that like foreign central banks need to have a supply of treasuries that they have a profit on that they can sell the next time the dollar starts to go on a run.
Right.
They don't believe this. They don't believe this dollar bear run at all. I don't think. Like that, no one in their right mind should believe that the euro is properly valued at $1.05.
Right.
Like no one is thinking that. But markets need pressure relief rallies. Bear markets need pressure relief rallies. Bull markets need corrections to reset everybody's expectations and everybody's mania. Right. And so right now there's a bit of a mania in U.S. Treasuries. So if you're the Fed, you're selling into strength. I would be. If I was Powell, I'd be selling. I'd be breaking my $95 billion a month limit right now. I'd sell $150 billion into this, and then maybe only sell $60 billion next month, or $50 billion next month. You know what I mean? I would take egregious advantage. So especially since the Fed now, technically has a hole in their balance sheet. So.
Got it. How long have we been going? Because apparently this ends in 10 minutes.
Are you on a paid Zoom account or a free one?
I No. Did they change that?
If you're on a free Zoom account, the meeting limit is 40 minutes.
Wow, that's
It's always
new.
been that. It's kind of always been
Huh.
that. Mm-hmm.
All right then.
That's fine. What we'll do is you just got to
Yeah, just edit, chop it,
you're
whatever.
you have to stitch this together, and you have to edit this out. I had to do that with the podcast I just published with Chris Sullivan because my
Damn.
wife has a paid Zoom account, but I logged out of it on my laptop and can't remember the fucking password.
That hasn't always been the case, has it?
Yeah, it's always been the case. It happened to Kathy Wood. She was hosting a friggin' meeting and like on CNBC, and the thing dropped out on her because it went longer than 40 minutes or something. It was crazy. Yeah,
Wait,
like
so
they don't
wait.
like how does ARK not buy spend $10 a month on a paid Zoom account? It's just nuts. So,
Huh. Because that's weird. Like in the past, I've never had a I didn't pay and I could get like 2 hours.
on Zoom.
Yeah. Anyway. Cool.
Interesting. I mean, it may be that I'm also logged in on my free account, so since nobody's paying,
Mm-hmm.
that may be the issue. I don't know. Maybe it is what it is. So we'll just keep going.
Maybe. All right.
We got 6 minutes, and then we'll just make a new meeting link and
Sweet.
send it to me, and
Cool.
we'll
Will do. So to tie a bill on this, basically, a lot of this like mumbo jumbo treasury stuff is a little confusing to me. Like when you say like reload, I just think like deficit spending money printing of the ECB to yield curve control and like buy assets.
Yeah, that's
That's it.
effectively it. I'm just saying that the way I wanted to put it in kind of metaphoric terms for people is since July, there's been three major events that have allowed Lagarde and the ECB to extend and pretend another 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
You had the creation or the announcement of the TPI, Transmission Protection Instrument, to maintain credit spreads within the EU, which gave the markets the false hope that Lagarde knew what she was doing. You had the blow up of Liz Truss's government and the submission of the UK to Davos, and now that, and then you had the SNB intervene in the Swiss franc market while Credit Suisse was undergoing a bank run, and all of those things forced a lot of dollars off the sidelines. And now, in the last couple of days, Powell turns around and goes, "Okay, yeah, well, we can extend your little thing for a little while longer because I'm into tax because it's tax loss selling season here in the United States. It's December, and a lot of people are sitting on some losses. So I'm going to bail out. I'm going to make it a little easier for people to not sell their stocks at a loss into December. So I'm gonna make like I'm pivoting or make like I'm slowing down, even though he's said exactly everything he's been saying for months.
Yeah.
the market so wants to believe that he's going to do that. The market sentiment is still, as I've been saying, still in denial about the end of the Fed put because of the imprinting of the general zeitgeist of the market psychology that the Fed put's been in place as long as almost all of us have been alive, or at least alive long enough. Professionals have been alive long enough to be professionals. Like every professional bond, manager and portfolio manager over the age of under the age of 65 hasn't ever traded a bear market in U.S. Treasuries. 60, 65 years old, right? Because it's a 50-year bear market, a 50-year bull market. These guys entered when they're when they were at best at 22 years old. So we're talking guys under the age of 70 at this point have never traded a bear market in U.S. Treasuries. So, the younger guys have no idea what that even looks like. And when you have you have the OG in the local office going, dude, remember the 70s? Like, oh, yeah, whatever, grandpa. You don't understand. It's a different world today. Like, you don't think that conversation has not happened about 400 million times in the last 15 years? At every, Raymond James or Credit Suisse or JP Morgan trading desk. Are you kidding? No more? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, of course it has. And then crypto on top of it, just elevating the Ponzi scheme to, orders of magnitude way above whatever anybody ever considered was possible. Of course. So now the idea in the minds of the Gen Xers and the millennials working these desks don't have any idea what it looks like. Don't believe it's even possible. And therefore, they won't believe it. So all Davos has to do is write a couple of fake headlines and allow the algos to go wild, which is what they did during Thanksgiving week in the oil markets.
Yeah.
They literally wrote up like 3 fake headlines and whipsawed the price of oil and $5-6 a barrel. And Saudi Arabia was having to come out and like do damage control over fake news stories that were coming out of friggin' Reuters.
So is that why I filled up my tank at 275?
You're in Texas.
Yeah.
I'm still filling up at like 325. So, but I'm in a weird place in North Florida that always pays about 10 cents more than the rest of the state. So,
yeah. Cool.
I mean, we pay more in my area of the state than people pay on the Florida Turnpike, which is a toll road, and they're always 15 cents higher than the rest. You know what I mean? I pay even more than those people.
Yeah, that's nuts. Well, we're running up on this time, so I'm gonna end this, and I'll send you another link, and then we'll do it live.